Hello everyone, and I'm back again for another weekly installment of How Not to Summon an Overlord Season 4 episode breakdowns. So everyone, I want to start off this breakdown with a little bit of corrections going on with the episode this week, as well as what I said in last week's breakdown. So in last week's breakdown, I said that if this episode did not cover the Volume 11 epilogue, that I would cover it in this week's breakdown, and it didn't in this episode. However, upon further reflection, I have realized that Volume 11's epilogue really ties into events that occur in Volumes 12 and 13, and I also kind of wanted to talk about some minor things that happen in Volume 12 and 13 in order to maybe settle the transition a little bit, because in this episode we are finally transitioning from Volume 11 to Volume 14, so we're making that jump, and I was really curious as to how they were going to do this jump, and it turns out they just decided to jump it without explaining anything. So there are a lot of references and comments in this episode that I feel would make absolutely no sense to someone who hasn't read volumes 12 and 13. Like, I still feel like you'll follow along with what's going on. It's just these certain comments that are going on make no sense whatsoever. So I'm going to preface this next section of the video with the next part contains minor spoilers for the events of volumes 12 and 13. I'm not going to go in super in depth as to what happens in the events, but I am going to be covering the broad strokes of the future plot of the movie. So if anyone watching this video does not want to know anything about what goes on in volumes 12 and 13 and the upcoming Overlord movie, you can skip to the timestamp here. I just wanted to give you all fair warning that I am going to be talking a little bit about what goes on in volumes 12 and 13. Alright, this is the final warning. Okay, if you're sticking around, that means you want to hear a little bit about what goes on in volumes 12 and 13. Alright? Okay, you're going ahead. So, volumes 12 and 13 take place in the Robo Holy Kingdom. So first off, I need to preface that there was more than likely a translation mistake if you guys watch the Crunchyroll versions of the sub, which is what I watched, they kept saying the theocracy in this episode, which made no sense whatsoever. And I believe there was a translation error or a sub error, or someone was hitting the crack pipe at Crunchyroll, because it shouldn't be the theocracy. It should be the Holy Kingdom. I think there was some sort of translation error, Holy Kingdom, theocracy, both kind of like religious sounding nations. But every time they say the theocracy in this episode, no, they are referring to the Robo Holy Kingdom. And what goes on in volumes 12 and 13 is actually an invasion of demi-humans led by Yaldabaoth, Demiurge. And like I said, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but what happens is the Sorcerer Kingdom ends up intervening in this conflict, and AINZ fights against Yaldabaoth directly, and they end up driving out the demi-humans in Yaldabaoth, and this kind of secures the Holy Kingdom as like a staunch ally of Nazarick. So what the Sorcerer Kingdom in this episode is actually doing is sending aid through the Riestes Kingdom to the Holy Kingdom, not the theocracy. I wanted to make sure we were getting that clear, and that's why they're doing it. They're doing it because they're now officially allied with the Robo Holy Kingdom, because they've helped them out with the demi-human invasion in volumes 12 and 13, and now they're sending them food as humanitarian aid for the country to get back on its feet after the invasion. So that's why Zanuck was talking about Yaldabaoth and the theocracy, which is the Robo Holy Kingdom, in that scene in the beginning of the episode. So I hope that gives a little more context, but unfortunately I can't like clear that up without talking about volumes 12 and 13 a little bit, because we're skipping over those in order to jump right into volume 14. So I do have to preface this breakdown as well, going into the actual episode itself, is that I actually don't have my copy of volume 14 with me right now. I lent it out to a friend who has been reading the light novels, and they asked me for my copy, and I said sure. So unlike the volumes 10 and 11 content I was doing for this season, I was actually like rereading the volume. I have to kind of just go with my memory on what I remember from volume 14, but I may miss out on some of the little details is what I'm saying. I'm more going to be hitting broad strokes since I don't have the actual copy with me right now. So moving on, we have that scene with Philip, which really kind of kickstarts this whole arc of the anime. So Philip, the actual arch genius, Ayanokoji of this anime, if you will, he's a little down on his luck because none of his plans that he's been trying to implement in his own territory have worked, and none of the higher ranking nobles treat him with respect, and so that's why he's drinking his problems away. He's dealing with life, you know how it is. And the thing is, he blames the Sorcerer Kingdom for a lot of his problems because they are doing the food trade, which is preventing him from selling crops, which his are more expensive, so everyone's just buying the cheaper product. And the funny thing about this is that the Sorcerer Kingdom has actually caused the price of food to increase in in the Riestes Kingdom due to the actions of Eight Fingers and Albedo, and this is something that was touched upon in episode 2, and I think I explained it, but I'll reiterate again since it has been a while. Albedo has instructed Eight Fingers to basically confiscate food stores around Riestes Kingdom and send them back to the Sorcerer Kingdom, and what this is doing is causing the prices of food to inflate in the Riestes Kingdom, not to mention there's already a labor and food shortage because of so many people dying in the Kotz Plains, so this is resulting in a disgruntled populace, and so the Sorcerer Kingdom is basically just selling back the goods that they took from them at a cheaper price since it was all net profit anyway.
You move the stuff out the back and sell it at a discount. You take a $200 case of booze and you sell it for $100. Doesn't matter, it's all profit.
And that's what's causing the economic instability amongst the sellers in the Riestes Kingdom. So Philip just constructs genius move, this master stroke of a plan he comes up with on the spot.
Sometimes my genius is... it's almost frightening.
To rob one of the sorcerer... I was trying to keep this up, but I can't anymore. This idiot decides to rob one of the Sorcerer Kingdom's, transports of food to the Holy Kingdom in order to take back some of the goods. And he enlists two nobles that are in his new faction as well to go along with this. And something I think that wasn't shown in the anime is that these two guys that went along with Philip, they did not want to do this at all. They knew this was a bad idea. In the anime, they didn't actually show the actual robbery happening, but when the robbery actually took place in the light novel, the two other nobles were like, hey, you can just keep all the stuff. We don't really want anything to do with this. And they actually held back their men. Like, Philip had his men, and then they had their own men, and they were just like, you can go ahead. They did not want to be a part of this, because they knew what this would mean and what this kind of signifies. And a comment that's made by one of Philip's allies during this whole raid is that they don't think it'll be too bad that because the Sorcerer Kingdom lacks the manpower to annex the entirety of the Riestes Kingdom. And that's actually brought up by Albedo in this episode, is that they are really lacking the manpower to administrate this much territory. And so Philip's ally thinks that because of this, they'll only annex in a war, they would only annex like the surrounding territories or territories nearby to Irantel, instead of, taking over the whole country. And so this just goes to show you that even these nobles that aren't like particularly smart or anything like that, just the average guy is just infinitely smarter than Philip. And it's just Philip is so full of himself, this arrogance that Albedo and HILMA have fed him because that's part of their plan. They want to make him gullible and everything like that. Keeps feeding an ego that has ambition far above their capabilities. So this gets back to Albedo and eventually all of Nazarick, and something that was shown in the anime but I think it was elaborated better on in the light novel from how I remember, is how utterly confused everyone is. Like, everyone has no idea what's going on anymore, because this is the first time where something hasn't gone according to the plan, either by Demiurge or Albedo standards or AINZ's standards, like where AINZ just says something, you're like, oh, you planned this all, your majesty. So they bring in HILMA, and this scene I actually thought was really funny and well done in the anime. And HILMA is Eight Fingers' representative and Philip's handler for the whole plan. And I'm going to refresh your memory in case you guys forgot. Nazarick sent all of Eight Fingers to Kyohuko, the bug guy, and had them eat the members from the inside out, and then they healed them with healing magic and did this kind of several times in order to make them obedient. And since then, HILMA has like been unable to eat solid food. She's like lost a lot of weight. You can kind of see it in her character design, and she's just psychologically traumatized from this whole thing, and like you can see the way she acts around the Nazarick people. She's utterly terrified. But AINZ comes in and basically, with his cold hard logic, it's just like, she's not to blame for this. She didn't know about it. They haven't betrayed us. And AINZ does the old boss logic, hey, Albedo, you were her boss. I think in the anime they made it seem more like it was a romantic interest, which I don't recall in the light novel, because in the anime it made it seem like she wants that AINZ will bone, but in the light novel it's more of just like she's just extremely thankful because all she's gotten is nothing but horrific abuse from the Nazarick people, and now she's finally getting like treated reasonably, and like she views AINZ as like this extremely reasonable guy, and she wants to become like his direct subordinate now so she doesn't have to work with these super evil NPCs. NPCs, but this whole interaction ends up leading to Albedo admitting that she underestimated Philip's stupidity, because there's just no way to predict him. He's just so dumb. And I really loved how they presented that conversation between AINZ and Albedo, and like basically the debate of, is this some sort of scheme, or are we falling into some plot, or is there really someone that could possibly be like this smart? And then of course AINZ just throwing out the idea of maybe it's just an idiot. And of course, in typical Overlord fashion, all the NPCs latch onto this idea. However, unlike typical Overlord fashion, AINZ is 100% correct. This might be the first time in the series where AINZ overrides his NPC's plans with an actual correct assumption. And this is where we find out what the original plan that they were working on in the beginning part of this season was. They call it carrot and stick in the anime. I think in the light novel it was called Operation Candy and Whip, is that they were going to get a noble on their side that they could manipulate and use that noble to sow discord in the Riestes kingdom. And they wanted to gather up all the corrupt and incompetent nobles in one place behind Philip, and then cause a civil war in the Riestes kingdom, which would give the Sorcerer Kingdom a casus belli to invade and annex the Riestes kingdom. That was going to be the original plan. However, Philip's actions basically revealed to Nazarick that he's an unreliable pawn. He's so stupid that you can't predict what he'll do, and therefore he's not useful in terms of setting out pre-established plans. In the light novel, they also discuss the possibility of foreign intervention from the Arglan Council state as well as the slain theocracy if they don't move on this now. So because of all these factors, it basically caused the Sorcerer Kingdom to alter their plans from destroying the Riestes kingdom from within to just declaring all-out war on them. And they used the attack on their humanitarian aid transports as a new casus belli. So now we move on to the final scene with the kingdom's leadership. And something that I don't think has been described very well in the anime up to this point is Ramposa's mental state. And it's been talked about a little bit in the light novel at this point. Now I'm going to fill in the blank here. Is that Ramposa has basically been in a super deep depression ever since the events of the Kotz Plains. Gazif's death has had a deep psychological impact on him, and he has not been doing well. He's been a little irrational, he's been having big mood swings, and so Zanuck is really kind of pushing for the king to abdicate at this point, but he's still refusing to do so, because like I said, he's still there. Like, he's not like gone completely crazy, it's just he's definitely not at 100% anymore. And another thing they show in this scene is not only has the Sorcerer Kingdom declared war, but it's also been approved by several other parties: the Baharuth Empire, the Dragon Kingdom, the Robo Holy Kingdom, and also a new group that has not been mentioned in the anime. It is Faceless. I believe that refers to a very important person in volumes 12 and 13 called Nia, and I'm not going to say anything about her, but I believe that is what they mean by Faceless. And that's all I'm going to say about that, but basically this shows you is that a large chunk of the international community of the New World is siding with the Sorcerer Kingdom on this, so the Riestes Kingdom is in a bad spot. And Zanuck actually being somewhat intelligent is like, look, the difference in our military power is too great, we stand no chance, we have to sue for peace, it's wrong to fight these guys. And then it ends with Albedo coming back to the kingdom and Ramposa offering his own head as atonement for this. Like I said, he's not really thinking all that clearly. He's been deeply depressed ever since Gazif's death, and honestly without Gazif as an advisor, and he's kind of felt a little lost of it as well. So that pretty much sums up this episode breakdown. Honestly, there wasn't really much cut content besides the actual attack on the humanitarian transport from the Sorcerer Kingdom. They did cut that scene out, but really this episode only functions as basically the setup and the provocation for one of the biggest events in the Overlord timeline, which is this conflict between the Riestes Kingdom and the Sorcerer Kingdom, which I'm just so excited to be getting into this, guys. Like, holy crap. There's going to be some cool stuff coming in this volume, and I can't wait to see how they do it in the anime. But I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below on the episode itself. Were you guys really confused about the whole Theocracy Robo Holy Kingdom switch up like I was? I was so confused. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, please don't forget to hit that like button on your way out, and if you aren't already, please subscribe to the channel. It helps me out more than you know, and it'll let you know when I post in the future. With that being said, I want to thank you guys for watching to the very end of the video, and I will see you all next time. Bye.